Jets, big energy on it, but it's Scalacci, 10 lengths in front. He's going to wind back the clock like it's 2023. Scalacci by 9 lengths. He is the best. Explicit won by 6.
Well, if that doesn't get you fired up in the lead up to the Melbourne Cup, the world's greatest greyhound race, I'm not too sure what is going to. The countdown is on to Saturday night for the running of the Sportsbet Group 1 Melbourne Cup. What a amazing race it's going to be. So much early speed. And this is the podcast where we're going to pull the race apart, talk everything Melbourne Cup, hopefully find a winner or two. And the man we've got on the podcast as the co-host, this man will be able to give us a bit of inside info and a bit of knowledge around the Sandown Park venue. It's Timmy Belfrage. I think I got the pronunciation right. A first-timer on the podcast, Timmy, as I welcome you, mate. And they always say, once you go green light on, you never go back.
Great to be with you, James. It's a really exciting time of the year for Sandown Park in particular. And great to be joining you on the podcast.
Hey, mate, I want to get to know you a little bit. We actually worked together many, many moons ago at the watchdog writing down comments for greyhounds. Talk to me about your role right now at Sandown Park and I guess your journey through the greyhound racing game.
So currently I'm the general manager of racing operations at Sandown Park and been in the role for just over 12 months now. And been in greyhounds a long time. So we started off in the watchdog area and moved into the racing operation business at GRV and progressed my way to a role at Harness Racing Victoria for about 6 years. And then I've found my way back to Sandown now. So it's happy to be home. Feels really good.
This time of year too, like counting down to the Melbourne Cup, there's just this awesome buzz in the air when you talk about the great race. And I think you could just about speak to any greyhound trainer. The Phoenix is obviously a race that's really on the up, but I think any greyhound owner, trainer, breeder, or participant, they all want to win this race. There's something special about a Melbourne Cup.
It's the cherry on the top, I think. It's the pursuit of any breeder, I think. Any owner, any trainer, it's really the crown jewel of all races, I think, in the country. Might not have as much prize money as some of the other ones, but it's still as prestigious as always, I think.
What about the history of the great race, the Melbourne Cup? I thought we could pick back and I guess rewind the clock and try and pick out a favourite Melbourne Cup. I know it's hard to pick one. You've got 3 photos in your office, is that right, of recent Melbourne winners?
3 photos, well, maybe not quite so recent, but I've got Betty's Angel. She was one of the first greyhounds that really got me into the sport. I've got Surgeon up there, and then I've got our Grand Senor as well. But the pick of mine is probably the most controversial of the lot, and that's Surgeon. It was a hell of a race. It was high impact, I guess you could say. An interesting finish, that's for sure.
Interesting finish, noticing that Surgeon won the race. He then cops a ticket for marring in the race. He doesn't race again, and it's Jason Thompson who finished second and third with Nitro Burst third, Hannafai's Impact in second. So it's a controversial Melbourne Cup you've picked there as a favourite.
Certainly is, yeah, but poor Hannafai's Impact, she was the winner everywhere, except Surgeon just got her on the line.
Well, there you go. That's Timmy's favourite Melbourne Cup. Just before I release mine, I did have some spies at Sandown Park that said the reason and the main reason we got Timmy back to the role at Sandown Park is because of the polo shirts they were going to give you. Is there any truth in that? I notice you're wearing one now. We snagged you from harness racing back to greyhound racing because of those.
Oh, definitely. It's definitely about the merchandise, that's for sure.
It is good merch. There's no doubt about that. Hey, my favourite Melbourne Cup, I found it actually really hard to pick a favourite for so many different reasons. I've been post-race interviewer on a few of them. Shona Thompson's Aston DB's one that springs to mind. She was really emotional post that. I called a Melbourne Cup as well, called a couple, the hard-style Rico win and Lucky Karabatsakos coming out and really breaking the barrier from behind the boxes to fist pump walking past. I think walking past the boxes onto the track. I think that's extraordinary vision and a memorable Melbourne Cup. He broke the record on that occasion. But for me, I don't know why, but it's Black Magic Opal. I just love the greyhound in the lead up to his Melbourne Cup. He was just a greyhound that just showed brutal speed. He could control the race, and it's exactly what he did. He was expected to win this Melbourne Cup. Serge and Bill Bacilli were amongst the ownership. I know they paid big dollars to acquire the greyhound, so there was that added pressure. The lead up he had was perfect, and he was just so dominant. So that's probably my favourite Melbourne Cup. The other one's the Dinah Double One, Fernando Bale. I think if Fernando won it, it would be clearly my favourite Melbourne Cup, but I just feel there's a slight lenience to, I think it was 2012 Black Magic Opal for me. Run of the day. Run of the day, run of the week, whatever you want to call it. This is our chance to pick our favourite Melbourne Cup heat from last week. And for me, I'm going to kick it off with the greyhound by the name of Sunset Frazier. Not only did he cost my pocket a fair bit, I was super keen on excavation, and I thought he was home, let me tell you, at the first corner. To run what he did down the back, 18:35, and surpass the record of the great Fernando Bale in the lead up to a Melbourne Cup is just mind-boggling. I went right back to the history books of when Fernando Bale won his heat of the Melbourne Cup, and he went 18:41 on that occasion. This dog went 18:35, and he did it off a first section, probably a length and a half behind Fernando Bale. So to show that type of enormous acceleration going down the back straight, he could be a scary prospect. His form, I know as a pup he sort of showed that brilliance, and he nearly won a Sandgroper breaking them up, but his form of late had sort of had him not as dynamic early, but definitely getting stronger, where this was the first time, I reckon, Tim, we saw Sunset Frazier, the complete package, the speed, the brutal acceleration, and the strength at the end to finish it off. This was a wow of a performance for mine.
It was sensational. It really got the crowd talking, that's for sure. He was just did it all the way, and it was just fantastic.
Well, mate, we are going to chat to Jason Thompson a little bit later on in the podcast as well. He's going to chat about his two runners. It'll be interesting to hear what his thoughts are on Sunset Frazier, and I guess the runner that finished up second in that race that he trains, because it was an extraordinary clash. Who did you rate last week as the run of the night?
My pick of the runs were Scalacci. I think the emotion of seeing Talgi after the race and with the dog, and just the way he expresses his feelings towards the dog, and just the way he went about his run as well, scorching down the back, away from everyone, and got an 8.5 length win. Like, it's rare to be able to do that in such a competitive race.
Big race preview. This is my favourite part of the podcast, the big race preview, where we pull apart the big race. And on this occasion, there's two of them. We'll go in depth on the Melbourne Cup and just sort of touch the surface when it comes to the Group 1 Bold Trees. Let's not forget the stayers clashing for Group 1 glory over the 7:15 as well in Kangaroo class. We'll probably run the favourite there. Up first, though, the box draw for the Sportsbet Melbourne Cup. Group 1 level, maybe the greatest race in the game. And what a field this is. Number 1, Joey the Jet. 2, Epitomise. 3, Scalacci for the pizza shop owner. 4, Sunset Frazier. 5, Miss Envy. 6, Explicit. 7, Big Energy. 8, Buddy Manelli. That is a field jam-packed full of class. I honestly don't know where to start, so we may as well start with greyhound number 1, Timmy. Joey the Jet, what do you make of this boy drawn the inside? He was supreme from box number 8, and I know the raps on this dog have been enormous from day one.
I think the staggering thing about him is he's not even 2 years old yet. He turns 2 in a couple of weeks' time. So to be able to get into a race of this calibre this early on is just sensational. And I don't know if he quite has some of the lightning early speed as some of the other rivals, but he'll definitely be in the firing line for that first turn.
I think he's a huge player off the inside. Greyhound number 2, Epitomise for Bradley Greeno, went 4.97 to the first peg, 18.54 off the back. He is the Great Chase winner. He's only tasted defeat on one occasion. He's another of these so lightly experienced greyhounds going into a Melbourne Cup, and yet I think there's a saying going around that the dogs don't know who they're racing against in that sense. They don't know if they've had 100 starts beside them or they've had 10, and sometimes that fearlessness can be a good thing. And Epitomise with that breathtaking early speed and inside draw, there's a lot to like about this boy.
Yeah, it really stacks up for him. Interestingly, he's out of Black Magic Opal, your favourite Melbourne Cup. So he's one of the connections he's with his dad there, and yeah, I think the draw is really good for him, and he's just going to be right there on that, getting to the first split.
What about number 3, Scalacci? As you said, he's your favourite runner of the night last week. He went 5:07. I don't reckon he actually pinged away. I was standing right beside the boxes, the 5:15 start, and I reckon he still missed it a half a length, but his sheer acceleration, which saw him win a Phoenix last year, just let him
Yep.
and really cut loose from the outside. He went 5:07, 18:60 off the back, and then 29:21. And I tell you what, for Jihad Talji, this was his boy Scalacci at his brilliant best. He's a winner of 16 of 39, $1.194 million in prize money. And if he can add the Melbourne Cup to his collection, he'll go down as one of the all-time greats, a Phoenix and a Melbourne Cup. Wouldn't that be a story?
Oh, it'd be massive. And yeah, to have that much prize money, it'd be truly into one of the greats of the greyhound world. That's for sure. And it'll be interesting to see what he can do from the inside draw.
We've already mentioned Sunset Fraser and just how magnificent he was. I guess, Timmy, the question for mine is he had the red last week. Can he go to box 4 in a race where there is going to be hectic speed? And his first section wasn't the section that was off the charts. It was that acceleration down the back straight. So I guess the question for mine going into box 4 in the final for Sunset Fraser is does he get that chance to show what he did, that brilliant turn of pace last week?
Yeah, well, is he the one that settles behind those leaders and can punch through down the back straight? That's probably the big question, really, isn't it?
Do you reckon he's good enough to sit off the speed and come from behind? I know he still broke 29 or right on the dot last week, but do you think he'd have to claim the lead going down the back straight to be able to win it?
I think if he's a length behind there and he can find his way along the fence, he's going to be right there.
Well, WA had a massive presence throughout last week. I know Peter O'Neill is a huge, huge fan of his local greyhounds, and he always says before a race, I'm not sure if you've heard it, they're moving in and Crystal Shinners leans down, picks up the collar and lead, content she can do no more. It's his favourite term, and I'd love if one of these WA greyhounds win that our man Dan Hibbard can produce something in the home straight. But for the Shinners camp to have a crack at this Melbourne Cup with this young girl, I think it shows a lot of trust in her ability. She won the Nationals at an early stage, and to come from box 5 in a Melbourne Cup heat as a young pup still learning her craft and run 29.16, I couldn't be more impressed by this performance.
Yeah, no, she's really impressed the way she's gone about it. I was there at the National Spring Championship final when she won that, and that was a great victory. And I think she's earned her place in the ranks here.
On then to greyhound number 6, Explicit. We heard from Jason Thompson on the Green Light On podcast just released, the Phoenix Flight Path, that this is just about it for Explicit. He's heading to the Melbourne Cup, then off to the Phoenix, and then more than most likely off to retirement. So if you're a racing fan and you want to see fast greyhounds race, get to the Melbourne Cup, because this could be the second last time to see Explicit in the flesh. And wow, when he gets it right like he did in the Melbourne Cup heat last week, he is as good as any greyhound that we've seen. And I don't know if I love the draw, but he can beat the 2 on his outside out, and that gives him a bit of room to move.
Yep, I totally agree. Arguably, he's the fastest greyhound in the country, I think. When he's on his day, he's as fast as it can be. So number 6 is the query, but if he can get across, poke his head through, he'll be right there.
What about Big Energy, drawn box number 7? He was in the Melbourne Cup last year, and I thought he had his chance to win it down the back straight when he made his move around the outside. Aussie Rocks went the short way through on the rail and took out the race as it turned out. But he's back to his brilliant best. He won the first of the feature races this year at Sandown Park, the shootout for this festival of racing. And to go back-to-back in the shootout, that's something you don't see. And to show that brutal speed in a shootout series, you know that if he gets the right run, I'm not sure he's going to get it from box number 7, but he had to work last week in the heat, and if he gets any luck, he'll be in the finish.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I think it's staggering that he's broken the 29-second barrier here at Sandown Park 5 times. So
extraordinary.
If he can produce anything like that, look out.
Buddy Manelli for Lynn Smith has raced 3 times in Melbourne Cup races, so either heats or the final, has drawn the red every time, and once fell in the Melbourne Cup, completed the course okay. But his other 2 times he's raced in a Melbourne Cup series, the heat last year, the heat this year, he's won them both. Now, The draw is the biggest challenge for him. He's going to be a rank outsider, but he's a greyhound that if he gets any luck in running, he's strong. I struggle to find a way that he could possibly win this Melbourne Cup with the draw. If he had the red, he's a rough chance from box 8. It's going to make it awfully hard. But for Lynn Smith and the team, to get him to back up into 2 Melbourne Cups is an extraordinary training effort.
Absolutely. So good that he's in the field. Like he's earned his way there. To come from the Hume Cup as well, like it's shown his versatility, and to be able to get back into the Melbourne Cup again, particularly after falling last year, is such a great effort.
And, mate, he might need a bit of luck out there, but what about the reserves? I feel like if either of these get into the field, they could impact. Excavation, Deadly Avenger, 2 greyhounds that I reckon can push the 29-second barrier here. And at this stage, they're emergencies. They're sitting on the bench. They're sitting on the couch just waiting for their moment to shine. And if they get a run, I wouldn't discount them.
No, definitely not. If either can draw a box, they'll be right in this race. They could do anything. They're the really good reserves to be seen there.
I always say you can tell the strength of a race by the strength of its reserves, and they don't get much better than that. Hey, let's get into selections for the Sportsbet Melbourne Cup of 2024. I'll kick it off. I have no idea what to tip. I'll be 100% honest. I reckon this is maybe the best edition of a Melbourne Cup we've seen. The most amount of speed, I think, and depth in a Melbourne Cup we've seen. Just a lot of the big names that could run blistering times happen to get through, and the draw makes it even harder. However, I'm going to go with the young star in box number 1, Joey the Jet. We're going to hear from Jason Thompson soon on the podcast, and I'm hoping he gives him a good push, but I've gone to Thompson Quinella. Now, I just went back through the history books. I know they've performed so well in this race, so I'm going to go with 1 on top, Joey the Jet. I think he'll use the draw, and he just has to hold them out early. If he holds them out at the first corner, I reckon he wins the race. For second, I've gone with 6 Explicit. I don't love the draw, I'll be honest. I think the fact he can beat the 7 and the 8 out, he's going to have no pressure from the outside. So if he zooms across, he'll run a huge race. He could even win it. I wouldn't be surprised. I've gone with 2 Epitomise up for third. I think the draw plays to his advantage. If he crosses Joey the Jet at box rise, he can win it. And I've gone with Sunset Fraser in for fourth. I tossed up between Miss Envy, Scalacci, Big Energy, and Sunset Fraser for that spot. It's a raffle. It's the best Melbourne Cup I think I've seen. For depth, I've gone with 1, 6, 2 and 4. Timmy, I'm hoping you've got a little bit more confidence as to finding the winner of this race. Please.
I think you've summed up. Well, I'm going to use the same numbers. That's the starting point. So I'm going to put Epitomise on top.
Yep.
I think he's really starting to show what he can do, and the inside draw definitely helps. Joey the Jet is my second selection there. He's got the red way in this race. And then I'm going to go for Sunset Fraser. I think if he can get down to the fence, punch along there, down the back straight, he'll be very close. And then I'm going to put in Explicit as well for fourth. And I think the class will be there. So the class will show out, and he should be in the finish.
So 2, 1, 4, 6 for Timmy in the Melbourne Cup. I'm surprised we went the same 4 numbers in what looks an absolute raffle. I'm not sure if Timmy got my sheet, maybe that might have been the key, or maybe I pinched his. Who knows? We won't read into that. Time for the bold trees and the box draw for this particular Group 1. Another hard race. 1, Black Silencer, 2, Kenya All Class, 3, Pass Mark, 4, Kenya Amy, 5, Ethanol Waters, 6, Shadows of Blue, 7, Ella's Babe, 8, Flying Envy, who made a huge statement last time. Just before we get to selections, Tim, what did you make of the heats last week? And were there anything or any runners that either stood out or disappointed? I'll kick it off with Kenya Amy. I thought once she led, it was game, set, match, and I thought she was a little bit disappointing. So the challenge for the Lanigan camp is getting her back to, to her best within 7 days of a disappointing heat run.
No, I think the fourth race, the fourth heat was the standout for me with Kenya All Class and what he was doing, and but then Black Silencer to be right there with him, only half a length away. He
was a really big performance. My numbers, look, again, I found it pretty hard to tip. I'm going to Kenya All Class. I just think he's got the brilliance, and I reckon he half hears them coming when he turns for home, because he looks as flat as a pancake at about the 650, looks all out of tickets, and then the pressure comes and he just finds another gear. He did it last week. He did it in the Top Gun, and he's going to get fitter and fitter and fitter over this journey. So I'm with 2, Kenya All Class to beat number 1, Black Silencer, back in the care of Stephen White. And I thought his run 2 starts ago was a bit plain at the Meadows. He had to travel across from Adelaide. He stayed here in Melbourne and he just looked to be back in form last start. Really flashed home behind Kenya All Class. I'm tipping that to be the form reference to follow. For third, I've gone with 5 Ethanol Water. Looks like a real genuine stayer. So happy to be there ahead of Alice Babe, number 7. So 2, 1, 5, 7, my numbers. Flying Envy's the greyhound I don't really feel comfortable leaving out because I thought that turn of pace last week was out of this world. But I'm happy to be with 2, 1, 5, 7. And if the 8 gets out to a price that's backable, maybe a small each way play there too.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna slightly mix that up, but I'll go Kenya All Class on top. Number 2, I'll go inside and outside here. Kenya All Class on top from Black Silencer, and then I'll go for Allah's Babe in third and Flying Envy to round it out.
So 2, 1, 7, 8, the numbers from Timmy. We're sort of along the same lines, I guess. So it could be a good Melbourne Cup night. What else is going on, mate? Because there's always something happening at Sandown Park. It's one of the, I reckon, the great clubs to go to and enjoy racing. Great facilities, beautiful view of the track, and there's always a heap happening on the track, but even more happening off the track. Why should punters get to Sandown Park on Melbourne Cup night?
It's the $1 million spinning wheel. One lucky patron is going to be spinning for the chance to win $1 million. And you don't get that every day, that's for sure. So we'll be drawing out 8 lucky people who will get a runner in the Melbourne Cup. And then whoever wins the cup, that person will get the chance to spin the wheel for the $1 million.
Spin the wheel for $1 million. Check out this for a support card. The Cup Night Stayers Group listed race, the Melbourne Cup, obviously, the Bold Trees, the Sir John Dillon Memorial over the 595 at Group 3 now on Melbourne Cup Night, the Cup Night Sprint Group listed race, the Vic Bred Maiden Series and the Super Vic Grey Series for 1 to 4 win greyhounds on the up. I mean, if you don't want to get to Sandown Park on Saturday night, I've got no idea what you're doing. An amazing night of racing, chance to win $1 million, chance to see Explicit in one of his second last starts. It's going to be huge, Timmy. I can't wait to be there on the racing.com coverage. Good luck with everything in the lead up. I know you're a busy man this time of year, so we appreciate you taking some time out. It's been good to get to know you and have you on the podcast as well.
Appreciate it. Thanks, James.
Inside info.
Inside info for back-to-back days with Jason Thompson. We had him on the Phoenix flight path, and now we want to talk Melbourne Cup with the great man. That's how good he's going. A quarter of the field locked away in the Phoenix as we go to air, and he's in a pretty good spot as well in the Melbourne Cup with 2 massive, massive chances. As we welcome you to the podcast, Jace. Has much changed in the last few minutes, mate? Are you well?
Yeah, no, good, James. Yeah, going well.
Hey, talk to me about this Melbourne Cup. You had a massive amount of runners go around in the heats. I think a few massive performances, and Excavation, Flying Zulu were absolutely outstanding in defeat. We'll start with Joey the Jet, who, I tell you what, the raps on this boy have been enormous from day one when he went to his maiden series at Goulburn and just smashed them. But his win from an awkward draw, and you could just see his natural ability wanting to get him across to the rail. I thought his performance was huge, and it's a big plus for him to have drawn the inside alley in the Melbourne Cup this weekend.
Yeah, look, I think that's exactly right. If you go through all the heats, and I have in reasonable detail up until now, that there was only 2 dogs that didn't lead at the winning post and won. And one of them was Big Energy, who had a very, very clear run, and pretty much his racing pattern is, I mean, he leads in some of them, he can sit off them, and he's got huge strength. And he, albeit he didn't lead, he sat second behind a dog, had a clear run and ran it down and ran 29.13. And the other dog that didn't lead at the winning post was obviously Joey the Jet. And for a dog of his age, and he's only ever won through leading, and one thing that obviously people don't know, prior to his start the week before in a prelude, he'd only ever had one 500-metre trial. He'd not had a post-to-post or a box-to-box. He had no 500 education whatsoever throughout his life. And to think that one trial over 500, one race, straight into a Melbourne Cup heat, possibly the worst draw in Australia for a speed dog to draw box 8, and a dog that does need to get across to the fence. I mean, we sort of saw how hard he was pressing down to get down to the inside. It was just massive. And for the inexperience that he's got, he actually raced like a dog that's had 50 or 60 starts, and most of them over 500. To see him, if you watch the replay and study it closely, that he got to got across outside of Champagne Cuddle, didn't try and push in any harder, stayed on the outside of it, was on the outside of it from, say, the winning post to when he actually went past him at the end of the back straight. For a young dog to be as composed as what he was and do what he did, I think was outstanding. Still run 29.19, and the best part about his race, I thought, was he's got home in 10.53. And for a dog that we well know I know he can break 5. I've got no doubt, whether it's Saturday night, in the future, he will break 5 seconds at Sandown and will comfortably get up the back in 18.50. If you can still get home in 10, we'll say 53, even 55, and you're running 18.50 up the back, you can't get beat. So I think he's got a lot of X factor, this dog. I don't know how good he is. I don't know whether I know off his run Saturday night under similar conditions, he can definitely go quicker than 29.19. I don't know whether he can run. I know he'd safely run 29.10 under the same conditions. Could he run 29 seconds? I don't know, but he's just got X factor about him. He's young. He's just an absolute professional and got just a gun draw. Couldn't have drawn any better. The dog outside of him is not going to crash down to the fence. It's happy to sit 2 or 3 off the fence. That's its racing pattern. And I just say, even if he begins with the 2, it'll just give him cover. And I don't know whether anything will be able to cross him if he gets a start right.
I'm sensing a little bit of confidence with Joey the Jet from the Thompson clan. What about Explicit? The draw makes it really tough for him. He's another that, unfortunately, in the last few big races he's been in, he's just kept on drawing out wide. And you gave the exclusive on the Phoenix Flight Path that this might just about be his second last start, the Melbourne Cup into the Phoenix, and that will be all off to stud duties. How do you see the race playing out? And I know there's a chance he could win the race, but logistically, how do you see him winning the race from box number 6 when there's so much speed around him?
Yeah, look, I just and analysing the race with no bias whatsoever, but just analysing the dogs that are in it, I can just see it possibly being similar to the Top Gun, whereby if he comes out average, he could still. I think that the draw is good that he'll get a clear run, but he may have a dog like Joey the Jet kicking up underneath him at the winning post and maybe even being a length in front of him, quite similar to what Excavation did in the Top Gun. And if that was the case, it wouldn't matter whether it was Explicit behind him. If Joey the Jet leads, you're not going to run him down. But you just don't know. I mean, it's been a long while since he's got the start right like he did Saturday, and he did go in. He'd only had 2 weeks between runs, but we really lightened off on him. I give him a very soft trial at Bendigo on the Saturday. And I just went in a bit differently, sort of wanted to let Saturday night's run bring him on a little bit, and he's pulled up unbelievable. I do think the draw, I don't mind him out of box 6 because if you have a look, the dogs underneath him are all going to head down. They're not going to crash hard to the fence, but he's a dog that his preferred draw is probably 4, 5, 6, like bang in the middle. I wouldn't say he's not a railer and he's not a wide runner. He just likes to sit 2 or 3 off the fence. So I'm really, really pleased with the draw, and with the dogs around him will allow him to get that clear run for 20 metres. But it's going to be all up to him how he leaves the boxes. And he wound the clock back a bit Saturday night because that's how he used to begin at the start of the year. And then in the races that he's got beat in the big races, he's missed the start and done things wrong, where I just thought Saturday night he just come out beautiful. And if he's repeats that and running 4.97, even if there's something kicking up underneath him, I just think he's really in sync and in good momentum to possibly go past something that might be underneath him through the catching pen, because he showed that in a win at Sandown, I think 3 wins ago. He had dogs. He was in the middle of Shimmer Current and a dog of Jeff Britton's, one of the Mapunga dogs. He split them. One of them kicked up underneath him, and he went past it at the end of the back straight. And I think he ran 29.08 that night. So if he can get himself into that sort of position, but he must get the start right. He can't be hitting the winner post in 5:10 or 5. Even I don't think 5:05 is going to lead you the race. I might be wrong, but whoever wins, it's going to have to get the start right, whether it's one of ours or one of the other dogs. But I just think it's the draws. I'm happy with the draw with both ours, and definitely not worried about explicit draw. And the other thing I think people shouldn't forget and may not know, he's never been beat at Sandown. He's had 5 for 5, and he's never been beat out of box 6. And he did win the lead of 6.
There you go. That's a nice little push for the champ that is explicit. Hey, I found that really intriguing that you've elected to do something a little bit different and go to Bendigo in the lead up to the Melbourne Cup with this greyhound. And just going through the stats, the kennel have dominated the Melbourne Cup in the last 30 years, and it was 30 years ago that you won your first Melbourne Cup with Light of Fire. So I guess is that proof in the pudding, Jace, that as a greyhound trainer you never stop learning and you're always trying to do things a little bit differently?
Oh, look, 100%, and they're all different. And obviously, the longer you have them, and a dog like Joey the Jet, we're sort of learning what suits him. And look, I actually took him to Bendigo Tuesday. He raced last Friday, and I took him to Bendigo Tuesday and give him a soft trial as well, and that worked for him. Like race Friday, trial Tuesday, race Saturday. Now he has a week off, which that was the idea. If he made the final, he has a nice normal week. And with explicit, he's done a bit of, he went up to Sydney for a trial, a race. He's had some hectic racing prior to the Melbourne Cup heats. He had 2 weeks between his last race and a Cup heat, and we just backed off on him a little bit, give him a real easy week after the Top Gun, just an easy trial at Bendigo on Saturday. So he had a full week to, then we stepped his work up leading into the heats, and now he just has a normal week working at home, and hopefully, touch wood, that has him where he needs to be and has him at his peak, because as we all know, the grand finals this week.
Well, mate, the team you've trained, is it 4 Melbourne Cup wins over the years? 1994 Light of Fire, where it all began. Then Team Thompson had Got a Moment, Black Magic Opal in back-to-back years, and then Aston DB in 2017. Is there a favourite that you go back and you look at the photo of the winning post and you think, gee, that was the greatest race?
Oh, look, they're all really special and all really different. I think Light of Fire, it was 30 years ago this year, and probably a bit young to really realise how big it is and how big an event a Melbourne Cup is. And the others, they're all been probably a bit more special because really we had big family involvement with all the other 3 wins. So I think now, even this year and going forward, to have the heavy family involvement that we've got with the racing, you just enjoy it a lot more. And I think as you get older, and the way sort of I like to do it, which is just sit back at home and I love watching the kids sort of take over. I get so much more enjoyment out of that than anything else. So I don't like to reflect on what's happened. I like to look ahead and don't like turning me back and seeing what's been. I'm always looking forward.
Oh, mate, there's a lot of success back that way, and I'm sure there's a lot of success heading forward as well. Just as we wrap up, Excavation is the reserve for the race off that awesome placing as we've spoken about last week. How do you plan for now? Like, do you sit there and go, well, let's do the week as if he's going to race in the Melbourne Cup? Is that the way you do it? And then you'll pick a race on the same night and you'll still go around?
100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Even if you're second reserve, but obviously more so first reserve, you only need one to come out. And I mean, we're even hoping nothing goes wrong with the 2 we've got in there, but we're very fortunate to have him first reserve. And certainly we don't want anything to go wrong with any of the other runners, but we must plan that he potentially could get a run. So luckily they've got a special event on Saturday night that he'll be entered for, and obviously he'll just have a week being prepared as if he was in the final, because he'll be there racing Saturday night anyway. But hopefully nothing happens to any of the finalists, but if they do, he'll certainly be ready to go.
Well, mate, as we let you go, I'm sure there's a lot of people around that would love to sit there and have a chat with you and pick your brain about greyhound training. But If you had to pick out one thing, I guess, line of advice that you could give to a trainer who wants to try and one day get to the success levels you've had in the sport, what would be the one line of advice you'd give to the trainers out there?
Use your common sense.
Yeah, okay.
Don't overcomplicate things. So just keep things as simple. And one thing I never forget, we're dealing with greyhounds that they're an animal, they're a dog that essentially just like to be treated like that. We're not dealing with a motor car that needs mechanics or whatever to keep them on the road. We're dealing with an animal that I think would rather have a pat and a lot of attention than anything else. So I just keep things simple and use common sense. It doesn't cost anything. Common sense.
I reckon if you double check, mate, I reckon a few of those dogs you have out in the kennel, they might have Ferrari engines. A couple of those explicit excavation, of course. Joey the Jet. Hey, we really appreciate you coming on the podcast. A great insight ahead of the Melbourne Cup, mate. So good luck with everything come Saturday night and moving forward. And yeah, we wish Explicit well in his last 2 starts, if that is to be.
All right, thanks, James.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call 1-800-858-858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.